Let's jump right into this explainer, skip the pleasantries, and start right at the climax of a 45-year manhunt. Imagine going about your day, living a quiet, seemingly normal life in the suburbs, when suddenly your past just completely crashes down on you right in your own driveway. Well, that's exactly what happened one morning in early 2019, and man, the details of how it went down are absolutely fascinating. Deputies actually orchestrated a fake car accident right in front of a home in Hayward, California. It was this brilliant, chaotic, undercover sting operation. An undercover officer knocks on the door, profusely apologizing for hitting a car in the driveway. It completely lured the elderly homeowner outside to exchange insurance info. And the second that homeowner was vulnerable, the trap was sprung. The polite conversation instantly shifted to, "Shut up, face the car," as deputies just swarmed in to make the arrest. Now, the juxtaposition of who they just slapped handcuffs on is wild. To his neighbors, John Arthur Gautreaux was just a 74-year-old devoted husband. He was a grandfather, a homeowner, even a former Boy Scout leader. He actually applauded the deputies for their clever ruse as they put him in the cruiser. But underneath this benign, carefully constructed facade was a monstrous secret he'd hidden for literally decades. The man sitting in the back of that police car was an accused serial killer. So how did they finally catch him? Well, we've got to look at the incredible science behind it. Cold case investigators in Santa Clara County used forensic genealogy. Basically, this is the process of taking unidentified DNA left at a crime scene and running it against public ancestry databases. By tracing the family trees of distant relatives who've uploaded their genetic profiles, investigators can narrow down a suspect pool until it points directly to one specific person. In this case, the science pointed a laser beam right at our former scout leader. Section 1. Peeling back the past. We move into the interrogation room, where Sergeant Cortez begins the slow, incredibly tense process of stripping away Gautreaux's innocent persona. Cortez doesn't immediately drop the murder charges. Instead, he starts pulling at the threads of a highly disturbed past. And Gautreaux's crimes left a terrifying spatial and temporal footprint. The violence spans from West Germany in 1963 all the way through the 1970s in California, eventually culminating in his 2019 arrest. He bounced from state to state, country to country, leaving a trail of devastation while somehow continually blending right back into normal society. Cortez casually asks if Gautreaux has ever been arrested, and Gautreaux calmly drops an absolute bombshell. He says, "I was arrested in Germany. I was accused of murder." He's referring to the shocking 1963 murder of 15-year-old Margaret Williams in West Germany. Margaret was sexually assaulted and strangled behind an American youth club where Gautreaux's father was stationed on a military base. But here's the thing. Despite openly admitting to the detective that he was accused of killing a chaplain's daughter, Gautreaux completely maintains his innocence, insisting he didn't even know her. The records, however, tell a completely different story. He was found guilty at trial, but because he was only 18 at the time, he was tried as a juvenile. He received a 10-year sentence in a German juvenile prison, served a mere 6 years, and then just walked entirely free. Like he told the detective, he was essentially dropped off at McGuire Air Force Base in the States, his dad picked him up, and he just resumed his life as if absolutely nothing had happened. Fast forward to 1975 in Palo Alto, California. Gautreaux is now a leader for a Boy Scouts Explorer post. A teenager comes forward accusing Gautreaux of sexually assaulting her, strangling her, and threatening to kill her if she didn't comply. When Sergeant Cortez brings this up in the interrogation room, Gautreaux deflects again. He says, "Nothing happened. I never saw her again," desperately trying to minimize the whole event as some petty, baseless allegation. Yet, he was convicted for this crime too. And you won't believe how short his time behind bars actually was for this one. For assaulting and strangling a teenager, he received a 6-month sentence, but he only served 30 days. 30 days. And he was allowed to serve those days on weekends. The justice system literally let a violent predator slip right back into the community with barely a slap on the wrist. Section 2. The Stanford Cold Cases. Now we reach the absolute core of the interrogation. Cortez pivots to the 1973 murder of Leslie Perlov. She was a 21-year-old Stanford University graduate working as a law clerk. Her body had been found dumped in the Stanford Dish hiking area, tragically strangled to death with her own tightly knotted floral scarf. This is the cold case the detectives are truly there to solve. Cortez slides a photo of Leslie across the table. Gautreaux looks at it, denies knowing her, but then makes his first major, undeniable slip-up. He casually remarks, she's cute anyway, she'd be about 18 years old, I guess, at Stanford. Cortez immediately zeroes in on this because he never told Gautreaux that Leslie was a Stanford graduate. Gautreaux tries to backpedal, claiming he just guessed she was a college kid based on her clothes, but man, the seed of guilt is firmly planted. But Gautreaux isn't done digging his own grave. As Cortez presses him about DNA transfer and his presence in the hills, Gautreaux blurts out a massive unprompted mistake. He asks, "What's the second young lady, the one up on a hill?" Cortez hadn't mentioned a second girl. The detective plays along, acting confused just to let Gautreaux keep talking, while internally realizing that this suspect just placed himself at the center of not one, but two unsolved murders. That second young lady Gautreaux accidentally introduced into the conversation, that was Janet Taylor. Janet was 21 years old, and her body was found dumped along Sand Hill Road in 1974. That is the exact same Stanford Dish hiking area where Leslie was found, and she was murdered just 1 year later. She'd also been assaulted and strangled. And decades before this interrogation took place, Gautreaux was a security guard working right near the Stanford campus. Section 3. Springing the DNA Trap. The detectives have let Gautreaux lie. They've let him slip up, and they've let him reveal his own intimate knowledge of the crime scenes. Now, they pose this pivotal question. How do you think your DNA got on a murdered college student? It's so rich with dramatic irony, because Gautreaux had just confidently tried to explain away how DNA works, talking about saliva and semen transfer, entirely unaware of the absolute scientific certainty the police are holding. He just shrugs off the question, acting utterly bewildered as to how his genetic material could possibly be on a girl he claims to have never met. This is the climax of the interrogation. Cortez leans in and shatters Gautreaux's reality. He says, "Your DNA is on her. I'm not trying to find out who did it. I'm trying to find out why you did it." Investigators found DNA beneath Leslie's fingernails that perfectly matched John Gautreaux. The science doesn't lie. They tell him point blank, there's no accident here, no other explanation. We know you committed this crime. And just like that, the facade totally crumbles. Get realizes he has finally hit a brick wall that he cannot talk, manipulate, or lie his way out of. He looks at the detectives, abruptly ends the interview, and just says, "I'd like a lawyer." The cat and mouse game is officially over. Section 4. Decades delayed, justice served. From the interrogation room, we transition to the legal outcomes that followed his arrest in January 2019. The results were decisive. In September 2021, Gautreaux was found guilty of first-degree murder for Janet Taylor, earning him 7 years to life. This conviction was sealed by DNA found on the torn crotch of Janet's underwear that was a direct match to him. Then, in January 2023, faced with totally insurmountable evidence, he pleaded guilty to the murder of Leslie Perlov, receiving a second life sentence to be served consecutively. Ultimately, John Arthur Gautreaux wouldn't spend long in his prison cell. He died of natural causes on September 22, 2023, at the age of 79. His death officially closed the book on the man himself, ensuring he took whatever remaining dark secrets he held straight to the grave with him. But while the man is gone, the science that caught him remains. Which brings us to a really haunting reality. Gautreaux's DNA remains securely in the state database. Investigators are still running his profile against evidence from other unsolved murders. Given his extensive travels, his history of violence dating all the way back to 1963 in Germany, and his bizarre ability to hide in plain sight for nearly half a century, we're left to wonder, just how many victims did John Arthur Gautreaux truly leave behind?